It's not like you're trying to make money, but you want to make sure it can sustain itself. Yeah.
Okay.
Right, right. So I kind of put together this diagram a while back and this would help in terms of discussing about the software. So you're gonna have some kind of onboarding process, right? So the school, I think they already use like Google Classroom or something like that, but whatever process, you need to onboard the student into it. In other words, you need to collect their data, whether it's their name, age, whatever, grades, that kind of stuff. Initially, you would do some kind of assessment. Now, I need to talk to Ingrid more about this, but that assessment could be the grade that they already have in school. So you could say, student A is getting a C in maths, for example, right? So you would already have that data, or you could just give them a test. You could have some standardized test that they do,
Yeah, because
and that.
I was thinking
Hmm?
on that point because some schools might do different, even though it's the same curriculum, they might be doing
Yeah.
different topics at different times. So how do you
Yes.
standardize it
Yes.
that everybody is doing either the same test so you can know exactly that it's a fair
Yes.
process? Because one student might do two topics and get 100%, and then they are a tutor, but another
Yes.
student might do different topics and not doing so well, and they are smarter but can't be a tutor. So there should be
Yes.
some starter sort in terms of this some standardized test that they would take either from
Right.
time to time or so.
Yes. Yes, I think, yeah, that's a good point. I think Ingrid can agree on that too. So we could standardize the testing. And I mean, of course, naturally it has to be tailored for Jamaica because Jamaica have their own curriculum as well. So,
Yeah, and
right. So that,
who would
yeah.
do that as well? So yeah,
Yes. 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 I think JTC seem to be willing to do that aspect of it. I mean,
okay,
pretty much they would be the ones who run this program. So basically, just to clarify that, I think we as a diaspora would probably find the funding and the expertise to help them.
mm-hmm.
But I think from talking to Ingrid, I think JTC is willing to take care of the management aspect of it,
Right,
and
okay,
working with the schools and stuff. So that part, I think that part should be settled in that sense. But of course, we need to get money, and Donovan is the guy we have to talk to about that. So the initial assessment would be done. What we plan to do, and I think she's gonna get this done too, is we have to teach the ones who are good and they're smart kids. We're gonna teach them how to teach. In other words, we're gonna have like a little maybe an online training program for them to take on how to be good tutors. So it could be like a online, like a YouTube kind of thing, but built into the platform. You could do it in the platform.
right,
Right. You just had a module and say, hey, take these tips on how to be a good tutor. And then now, I think the magic of the system, one of the important thing of the software now is the ability to pair the students, right? So basically, after you get all of them in, you need to have a way to pair them, whether it's manually, like you manually go in and say this student tutor that student, and then of course the pairing is one thing, and also you could do it automatically as well. In other words, at some point you can do it manually initially, but at some point you want to automate the process.
I think
Um,
it would have to be automated if you're gonna have because we've not talked about like numbers of users and how many students there are.
yes,
So
yes, yeah,
if you're talking about like there's over 1,000 schools in Jamaica,
yes, yeah,
lots and lots of kids, so
yes,
there would
yeah,
no there wouldn't be enough team
yes,
members to sit down and go through. So we'd have to have some prerequisite in terms of how it's done.
yes,
I think
right,
from the onset, just so that we can know if it works and so on, and
yes,
also the ability to do it manually in case
yes,
you want
yes,
to.
yes. Yeah, I can override. I can override. At work, we talk about overrides and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But because I think initially what we're planning, hopefully, if we can get something going by September, we're thinking we'd just do 100 students initially, just for testing purposes. But ultimately, you're talking about maybe more than 100,000 students in Jamaica alone. So
It's a lot of students, yes.
yeah, as well as students. Yeah. So um, and then now once you do the peering, now you have a kind of a you could call this a cycle process whereby you schedule sessions for them to tutor, which technically you already have Google Calendar and all those things you can use. But it's good to have it in the platform so you can track it. So you can say how much tutoring session they have, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then you have some assessment at some point, maybe once a month or something, where they take a test. And at the end of the day, you want to see that. consistently the grades are improving at some point, you know. So this kind of like walk you through kind of the what we consider to be the list of stuff, right? Let me see if this no, this is not the one. Yeah, so that's kind of how the process would work, you know, on a high level. Let me just turn this off 1 second. My WhatsApp is making noise here. Yeah, so that's kind of the process. Now let me go back to the other doc um, and show you. I just, as I said, I just put this together quickly. Um, and this kind of capture what I just showed you in the diagram in a sense, right? So basically, you know, some kind of administration, I mean, you know, assessment, um, some kind of training program for the tutors, assessment, and then the matching part of it, right? So it's pretty much what I have here is pretty much covering everything. The key thing though is that the scheduling is one thing, but we also want to track. So basically, one thing we could say is that even the QT could actually rate the session as well. So you could give the option, maybe not initially, but you could give them the option to say, hey, you know, did I have a good training session? And that will help you to fine tune how good the tutors are and
Yeah,
stuff.
I think it should go
Right.
both ways. Both ways. So
Yes.
the
Yes.
tutor as well as the tutee can rate and
Yes.
comment on the session, which builds.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
They might need, if the person needs to, like say the tutee becomes good and want to become a
Hmm.
tutor as well. If they don't
Hmm.
have a good reputation in terms of that, then you can use that to decide how they move
Yes.
forward.
Exactly, and also coach them as well, like mentor. Because what we plan to do, I talked to Ingrid as well, was some of the teachers may become coaches for those tutors, you know, to coach them in terms of how they improve their skills, and it's a benefit for the tutors because they become, you know, better at those kind of things, you know.
Yeah.
Right, and then you have the other thing that maybe is how the payment stuff. So I don't think the platform itself has to manage the payments, but there could be a way that we could just say how much money they earn based on the amount of sessions they have, and then that could be exported to another system, maybe through an API or a CSV file or something, you know. Where you could use some other payment system to manage that. But I don't think it's a prerequisite to have it in the system. You know.
Well, you can build. You can use, for example, something like WePay. You could use
Okay.
for it,
Okay.
right? Or you could use the marketplace functionality from Stripe,
Okay.
which can be built in.
Okay. Okay.
You can build it into the system, or you can choose to export it to an external system. You can do both.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we can do that. I mean, I think that's a good point with Stripe and WePay, because WePay is a local in Trinidad.
Exactly, Caribbean
Yes,
origin. Yeah.
yes, yes. So use a local thing if possible. Yeah. No, so that's good. So I think it's good at least to know how much based on the number of hours you can just calculate how much money based on the rate. We're still debating about the rate because in terms of how much we'll pay them. That's one thing. Naturally, in every system, you're going to have some role-based system where you separate what's an admin from a user, and this plays on multiple reasons. You know, privacy. You know, you have to think about privacies as well and thing. I'm assuming you're doing some testing with. You know, you have a privacy thing that you run. You know, I know in Europe, you guys GDPR is a
Yeah, we
big
have
thing
a
there.
GDPR that we have to comply
Yeah.
with.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
They,
Because you
they
want to
have
make
one in
sure.
they have
Okay, go
one
ahead.
in Jamaica. They have one in Jamaica that is a direct copy of the European GDPR.
Okay,
So
I see. Okay.
it's not coming into effect until 2022. But
Okay, I see.
there is like talking about like not moving the data out of the country and those other things.
Oh, I see.
That's something we have to consider as well because there's not much data centers, or there's
Okay.
probably only one data center in Jamaica.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Okay.
So there might be some workarounds in terms of like what exactly is expected in terms of
Okay.
data
Okay.
protection.
Okay. No, that's interesting because are you saying that if you put it on Google, they're not going to allow people to put stuff on Google or
Um,
AWS?
well, because I've developed a software now and I'm trying to get them to look at it. Those are the sort of questions they're asking. And
Okay.
my question to them was, okay, we comply with the European GDPR, and that's what how our system works. So
Hmm.
it's through talking to them I discovered that there is this data protection policy that is going to come in effect next year.
Okay.
And so
Okay.
I started to ask them the questions. Okay, how do you manage putting your data onto Google, Microsoft, and those things? Because I know they use it, and they are mostly
Hmm.
like U.S. companies, and their data centers are in the U.S. or other countries. So
Right.
how do they account for that? But they didn't have an answer. They said they would do some research, but
Okay.
it didn't really answer the questions that they were asking me because I
Right.
didn't know of that until recently.
Right, right. Okay, okay, that's a very important one to consider for sure. And then, of course, the other thing, yeah. So the other thing I thought about too is also the concept that maybe we need a mobile aspect to it and a desktop. Maybe teachers may use kind of a desktop thing, but I mean, it could be just be mobile friendly. It could be a website, but it could be mobile friendly, kind of thing. It doesn't have to be a it doesn't have to be an app per se, you know.
Right.
Right, and then okay, go ahead.
Yeah, they're saying that they can access it and it's user friendly that they can get access to the details and information that is there.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah. And it's more the teachers, like the admins, who will probably use it more extensively. The students are going to do this more for scheduling and tracking performance.
so
So it's go ahead.
quick question. When you say teachers, are you saying that if, let's say, for example, Very Technical is having students
Mhm.
on here, would it be every maths teacher or every teacher within that school putting on subject information, grades, and those other things, using it daily to update and track
I
students'
would
behavior?
Yeah, I would think so. I think within the school, yeah. I mean, they would have to coordinate between themselves. But I think within the school, they would have to. I would say that per class, I would say per class that teacher for that class would definitely have to be able to have access to the students within his thing, right? Which come back to the privacy thing again. So that teacher may only have access to those students, for example, right?
That they
Uh,
teach.
Yes, that they teach. Yeah, exactly. So you'd have to think about it, or you match a group of students from teacher. You might have a super admin like Ingrid, for example, who may be able to see everything.
Hmm.
Right, or the principal may now see everybody within that school. So you can have that hierarchy where the principal would see everybody in the school, but they won't see for another school. But then at the ministry level, the ministry should be able to see right across the
Access
island.
them.
Right.
So
Um,
what are the incentives for these teachers to be able to do that?
Good question. I think one of the first one I would think is the fact that they would get the students would perform better in their classes, right? So basically, I mean, if you think of yourself as a teacher, you want to know that your class is doing well because it actually reflect on your career in terms of you being things. So that's the first thing, the extrinsic thing. The other thing we have to think about is whether we have in a way, kind of a payment system for them. I mean, we have to think through that as well to see how how we could incentivize them because we don't want to also think that we're taking away their jobs as well.
Yeah, because they do tutoring after
Yes,
school and they
yes,
collect money that way. That's how most teachers
yes,
make bit of money. So if they're gonna go on there to pretty much give away their income,
yes. I
what
mean,
what would
yes,
want
yes,
just alone the fact that they want their students to do well.
yes,
I'm looking at Jamaica and is that something that they would actually just want to do because they want their students to do well? That's
yes,
something
yes, yes,
that would need to be considered a bit more. Like what are the incentives that
yes, yes, yeah.
or more incentives that would want them to get on there? Because while some would see that as a positive, some would see it as probably a negative for them. Just
Competitive. It's competing against them. Yeah, competitive stuff. Yeah. No, it's a very good, valid point actually. Very, very, very good point. And I think one of the things that Donovan and we have been discussing is okay, how do we make money on the platform itself? Initially, you say, well, it's within the schools, but what we're saying is we can also reach out to the diaspora in the sense that maybe one of the way we can incentivize the teachers is to say, listen, yes, you can teach your students, but now with virtual technology, you probably could be tutoring some Jamaican student in the US, for example, who can pay.
yeah.
So we can look on it in terms of the long term benefit of the platform in terms of attracting people who can pay money and thing into the system and make it a more not just I wouldn't just keep it within the diaspora. Let's say within Jamaica and the diaspora, And you would say that most of the diaspora will be able to pay, and therefore being able to do that increase the revenue potential for them. And they can, and also they may be able to tutor students in other schools as well, because now that you have the whole platform, they could also, if you're in Clarendon or in Manchester, you could tutor somebody in Kingston, for example, right? So,
I was even thinking when I was looking at this, I was thinking not to tutor within your own school,
oh,
because
I see.
it could be you know, Jamaicans or pretty much anywhere you go, we are in the same school. We sign up. You tutor me, but we don't really do anything, so we get the money. So
Yes, yes,
we
yeah.
both agree that, oh, this has gone well, those sort of things. So
Right,
maybe
right,
it would be suitable to do it.
right.
Well, it could be within school, but maybe initially to do it outside of the school.
Outside of school, yeah. No, that's a good point.
And then that brings into another question: how do we monitor and safeguarding? Because like here in the UK, you want to make sure that students are secure. So when they go on, how do you know that they are going on with the right person, another student, and not a predator, or student to student interactions? How do we ensure that it is appropriate? Are we going across year groups, so like year 7 tutor and only year 7, or is it year 11 tutor and year 7? And then how do we make sure that there's no you know, funny things going
Mhm.
on there, like people end up doing different, even if they go outside to go on Zoom or Google Meet? How do we know
Yes,
that they're actually doing it and not, you know, doing
right,
something else?
right. Yeah, yes. And I think that's a good point. I mean, I don't think I have a total answer for that, but I think, yeah, we definitely have to see how to monitor that, because at the end of the day, one of the things we're thinking about is, well, the outcome is definitely one way to manage that, and just saying that we will also provide, I think we're thinking that we would also have a bonus system as well. So in other words, yes, you will pay them for the tutoring session itself, but we were thinking that if you do well, like if the student go from a D student to a B student, for example, within a certain time, you would get a certain amount of, yeah, a bonus system. So some of those kind of incentives may help to reduce, people getting too funny with all kind of stuff. But you're right. I mean, we definitely need to have some good codes of conduct and be able to monitor that,
Or maybe we could
behavior.
just build that when lessons are going on, one person or one of the teachers or someone can drop in on these sessions, or
Yes,
they are recorded automatically, and then for
yes,
like
yes,
2 weeks or so to reduce space size and so on, so that
yes, yes,
if there is any complaints, they can always go back and watch and so on for us
Yeah,
to.
but recording you will need a lot of storage.
yes. Yeah,
You will,
that's
you will, you will, when you record every session,
yes,
and for example, you have a retention period of 2 weeks, you need a lot of storage to ensure you can save that data. So
yeah.
when you look at from a cost perspective, this
Mhm.
will drive up the cost significantly. So
Yes,
we have to you can build that in, but you need to ensure that uh, yeah, it
There's
okay,
space and
can't be too long of a retention.
okay, okay. So question for you then, your name is Leon, right? Leon, right?
yeah, yes.
Okay, so question for you then is, based on what we discussed, maybe you maybe have to think about what will it cost for you to add this to the platform, right? And then we have to figure out, while we're doing our financing thing, how much, to at least pay you to get that done, I suppose.
Right. Um, when I spoke to Ingrid earlier, she couldn't really give me any answer what was happening in terms of this. So I couldn't. So what I proposed to her, I was saying, I have developed a software that pretty much have the backbone to running something like this, which is a performance management system for teachers to look at like their
Okay.
appraisal, lesson observations. It also
Mhm.
includes opportunity to have students within the system.
Okay.
Teachers will know about the students, know about their background, their history, their learning abilities,
Mhm.
whatever educational needs they might have. So it has all of that. So this would be,
Okay.
if this is a separate system, then it would be a separate build from
Yeah.
scratch up. Or if you guys wanted to me to build it into my system for a quicker release, and then how would that work in terms of the copyright? Who owns it? Who pays for the security, the
Right.
maintenance, and all of those different things? So that's
Right.
something that she said I should explore with you guys, because you might
Yeah.
want to run this as a separate entity, or your individual company or contribution to the education system.
Yes, yes. So I mean, well, I think we can explore both options, right? One option is keep it in your system, and maybe you can tell us from your perspective which one is easier. If you just fork the one that you have now and just build a separate system of it, or if you just use the current system and just add the functionalities into it, right? Now, ultimately, what you probably should get back to us on is would be the cost to do that, because once we're working through the funding process in terms of looking at potential funding. So if you say, well, it's going to cost £10,000 to add it into the existing system, but if you build it from scratch, it's going to cost £20,000,
Yeah.
that kind of thing, right? And then now, in terms of maintenance, now we have to think about the cost for maintenance. So, or the license. So you're going to have a license fee, right? You're going to basically.
If it's within my system, then it would be, what I'm currently thinking of is like a subscription thing where they would pay, and that money would then facilitate me updating, keeping it on track, keeping it secured, managing the whole thing. And
Right,
then
right, right, right,
if it's an independent
right,
system, then we would simply build it and give it to you, and then you manage and you take care of that. Or if you want to continue to employ us to deal with it, then
right.
it would be that way.
I
But
would keep it.
my
Yeah.
system currently, it has pretty much everything except for the tutoring bit that we would have to build that feature within it. So that
Okay.
means
Okay.
either we partner and keep it going as a partnership, or
Yeah.
if it's just an independent thing, then we'd have to think
No, I
about it
would.
also.
I'm inclined to do the partnership stuff because, as I said, we pretty much what we want to do is enhance what they already have. We're not trying to, boil the ocean, as I would say.
Yeah.
Um, right. I mean, the whole idea is to add value. So it's, we're not trying to build. I mean, so I think I would more inclined to go towards seeing how you can add it in and make it the student aspect of it. So if you can, what you could do is maybe this week or whenever you get a chance, just come up with a rough estimate of how much it would cost,
Yeah. So
and how long it will take you to deliver that, Um,
I would go back and look at what we currently have, and then work out
y-
time and how I would do it, and then the cost, and then
yes, yes,
put that back to you,
and,
and then
yeah, and I
hopefully
think I
we
gave
can
you
work with it.
admin. Yeah, okay. No, that's good. And I think I already gave you edit privilege. So if you want to add in, if you think you need to add in some additional features that you think make sense or use cases,
Right.
that would make sense. Like, for example, the recording. I mean, we know it's going to be expensive to maintain the storage, but if we think that's something we should think about in the short term, I
Right.
mean, in the long term.
We wouldn't have to necessarily record it. I'm just thinking that if
Hmm.
we if we are if we are going in a true sense of, because as an educator here in England, those are sort of the first things I would have to think about. How
Yes,
are we gonna ensure that the children are safe? And
yes, yes,
we
yeah.
if and that's just one thing to record it. Maybe
Hmm.
not have it for, maybe built in the policy that if there's an issue, you report it straight away, so that we
Yes,
can then track and see what happened. But
right, right,
maybe we
yeah,
could say recording are kept for a week, so any report that is made after a week, we won't be
yes,
able to prove it. So it's something that we could put in. But thinking about like 100,000 students and even more, and other people
yes,
coming on, then that is gonna need a massive
yes. Yeah,
storage capacity
yeah.
to do that
No,
on.
I know. And I think, yeah, and we're trying to keep their costs down as well. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So no, that's good. I think this is good stuff. What else I was going to think about now? Yeah. Yeah. So that's good. I think if we get some idea of the costing while we'd love to see if we can get something by September. Are you going to be rolling this out by September for them, or what time
Well,
frame do you have in mind?
for my project, I wanted to roll it out now, but they are now evaluating it by looking over all the features that I'm providing, and
Okay, I see.
talking about the cost. And
Okay.
it's kind of weird to talk about cost with Jamaicans, because whatever you tell them, they always say it's too much. And even when you say the bottom line,
Yeah.
because you have to think about the business running and being able to sustain itself. And
Yes. 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 Yeah.
even when you say the basic cost as to get it running so that you can become known,
Yes.
they are still always saying, oh, we have to think about that, and can we get it lower, those other
Yeah.
things. So as a
Yeah.
startup business, it's kind of hard to go to take a loss,
Yes.
in that
Yeah.
sense, for a year
Yes.
or two, and then we're not sure what's going to happen the year after. So
Yes. I think.
I'm waiting for
Yeah.
them to give me some feedback, but my system is already available for them to use. We has to
Hmm.
they've sent to me 1,554 schools to add on. I've added them
Hmm.
on, so the next step is to have a meeting with the principals and Dr. Gordon, who's the CEO for the JTC.
I know her. Yeah, I know her. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so it's just to hear back from them where that is going. But one other thing, Ingrid was also talking about coaching for teacher to teacher coaching, and
Hmm.
that's something I'm not sure if I heard you mention that earlier. So is it something that both of you were talking about? Because she was pitching that to me as a different idea, which
Yes,
relates to her role within the JTC.
yes,
If I could develop something along that line to help with coaching.
y-
So
yes,
would that be
yes.
part of this, or is this
I
separately
think that's, I think
different
it was
altogether?
separate. I think our conversation was more around students, but I think the concept would apply to teachers easily, right? Because it's the same thing. I mean, maybe the metrics would be different, the assessment would be different for teachers, obviously.
Yeah,
But
but
I think,
they have their
yeah,
appraisal documentation that they go by and lesson
yes,
observations. So if the
yes,
teacher is
exactly.
not doing well in one aspect, then we can highlight those
Yes,
and pull them out, and then put the ones who are doing well. They have like what they
yes.
call a QEC, so Quality Education Circle, where schools work together. So one
Hmm.
of the proposal of my system is to be able to develop that QEC functionality in a system where you can identify the good teachers and the ones who are not doing so well in certain aspects, and then pair them so they can support. But we didn't I didn't plan to put that in a Google or recorded meeting or something that can be
Okay,
tracked.
okay,
It was just that you could identify them and put them together, whether they're going to work by phone and so on, and then they could
right.
go back and record what happened, and you could read it and even rate the sessions. But then thinking about it in a context like this, then we'd have to, if we put in this in, then we would have to think about it as well for both parties
Yes,
to be able to
yes.
do it.
Yes, and I think the way you could do this, I mean, and this just, I don't know how your system is designed, but you could do this as a, if you look at it from a modular perspective, you already, since you're doing performance management, I mean, it's pretty much what it's about. This is about
Yeah.
performance management, and all you're doing is just adding that capability to have sessions to improve performance, right?
Yes.
Right, and that can apply to both students and teachers.
All right. Freeze, I have some questions that he wanted to sort of run through with you.
Sure, sure, sure.
Freezer,
Yeah.
yeah, when we were talking about this, you had some questions that we wanted to sort of like, I don't know, did we get those answers, or you still wanted to ask some more questions?
Well, no, the I don't have really. I think everything has been answered. Uh, from what should be possible, what should be done.
Mhm.
Um, of course, when you then go on deeper, so we need to know, for example, um, uh, how we need to couple data from if they use Google Classroom uh,
Mhm.
to be able to connect with the API of Google. For Google Classroom, a lot of the times there is a education license required. So we can do, of course, we can. It can be built, but is it the? Are we supposed to provide Google Classroom functionality, or are we gonna piggyback on existing environments that using Google Classroom, that kind of stuff?
I know from experience with using Google, like you can give tests and you would have different topics and the scores. So
Yes.
it potentially could import the grades from Google Classroom. But then
Yes.
again, what if they don't have a Google Classroom subscription or nobody pays for it in the future? Then
So
this is
they
where
have, yeah. So today they have Google Classroom. I think that's their standardized program that they're using now. So I think that one, to answer your question, I think the ministry actually paying for that now. So I think that's pretty much their go-to LMS right now.
right.
Yeah. So and then of course, are they willing or are they open for provide access to the API to export data from that system
Yes.
or not? Because that's of course, especially when dealing with privacy regulation and stuff. I can assume there would be some reluctance in doing that.
Yes. Yes. That's
So those parts have to be discussed very clearly to
definitely
ensure that yeah,
right.
everything can be built accordingly.
Yeah, and I think we can, when we decide on the data set that we need from there, in other words, we'll have to have a conversation on the data and say, this is the only data that we're going to take from Google Classroom. And whether that's acceptable for them, um, that kind of thing. So no, that's a good conversation to have with them, and we can talk to Ingrid. Maybe we can have a follow up conversation with her. Um, but I think what Leon you can do is get us some idea of the costing and the timing. I'll talk to Donovan. I'll see if I can set up another call next Sunday and invite him to discuss it from a timing, because I think we're still working through the financing aspect. I mean, obviously we can put money into our own pocket and do it, but we prefer not to. you know, yeah, we prefer to
That's a
get
big
some.
undertaking with 20,000 kids tutoring, so
Yes, exactly, exactly. But as I said, for now, I would focus on maybe, well, obviously functionality need to be there, but I think in terms of stressing the system, 100 to 200 students would be our target initially. And then as we roll out, we can say, okay, prove it, we can add more stuff into it, and thing. And would you allow integration with, for example, say Google Meet, since they use Google Classroom and actually they have Google Suite. So they already have a license for Google Suite in the ministry.
Yeah,
So,
as long as their API functionality, we can do a lot, right?
mhm,
So because we can integrate Meet if it's required through the APIs. We can fetch data from the Google Classroom. We're also able to push data towards those systems. So yeah, from an API perspective and the agility we create by utilizing those APIs,
mhm.
we can build a lot, but yeah, we need to ensure that everything is according to the privacy settings and
my only concern is if the ministry decides to stop paying for Google Classroom at some point, then our system would not have the ability to carry on doing what it's doing. It would be solely dependent on that. So
Yes, yes, yeah. I mean, I think one way, and just a high level point is that as long as your system is designed in an API centric way, you can always piggyback into another system, right? So I just, in fact, in my job recently, we did a migration from another vendor. The vendor was going out of end of life,
mhm.
and we decided to design a way that make ourselves less dependent on vendors. We just built you could build a intermediate layer that says these are all the data points that we need, and then once we get talk to another vendor, we can just
you
give.
translate it into the format that vendor is utilizing.
Yeah, exactly. So we
Yeah,
can just.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is also the way we intend to set up the system.
Yes.
Build everything from the technical Node.js platform to do all everything API related, and have some separate front end to present the data. But
Yes.
everything should be built is going to be built around probably a Node.js platform. So
Exactly.
we will have that flexibility and translation possibility.
Exactly. So yeah, you just say, name is name, age is age, but you're coming from a different system. So, you can just do the plugin or whatever it is to extract that from that system. Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I will get back to you with costing and time,
Yes. Yeah.
whichever, or maybe both ways. So if it's going to be an independent system, what the development cost would be, and if it's going to
Yes.
be linked to mine, what the cost will be, and then we would have to come up with some form of agreement to say how that would work, so that everything is
Yes.
clear from the onset. There are no
Yeah.
complications. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, and we can chat next Sunday again because I want to bring Donovan into the conversation as well. Again, the key, as I said, I'm inclined to go with the existing system. I'm inclined to include it, but let's play out, and then we have to figure out how to monetize it a better way.
Yeah.
Because we can do, even though the ministry use it, we can also look at other potential options, right?
So there are
You know.
a lot of options in terms of monetizing. Because I was thinking, what's my next move? And my next
Mhm.
move is to offer courses. So teacher would deliver courses on the platform, and then
Yes, yes,
students could sign up and either pay for that, or some way they get money from it, where
yes.
someone fund it and they would have access, and they are able to watch these videos and do these lessons, do tests on it and so on. So I'd started working on the idea around that. So that could be
Yeah.
another way. And there's also another option where for employment purposes, so like people who are looking for teachers to do certain jobs, their
Mhm.
CV would be there for them to be able to have access to them, and that would be a paid option for them to pay to get access to them, as well as when they get the jobs, they would pay a fee as well. So there are lots of different
Yes.
options.
Yes,
So,
yes,
so more of what the model like companies like Udemy or Coursera are offering, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yes,
More
yes.
that style. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And you can also look at the private sector too. Like, well, two things. You can go up to the territory level, like the universities and stuff, to see if they're interested as well, and they would pay. They would pay to use. Or you can also look at private sector too, because they need performance management systems too. But you may have to modify it a bit if
yeah.
it's like.
In terms of mine, in terms of performance management, the whole idea had been surrounding not just school and teaching, but because it's so wide, I have to focus on one target audience.
No, I agree. I
Yeah,
totally agree with that. Yeah, as a start out, just focus on that. And no question about that. Yeah,
yeah,
no
and then build
question.
it so it moves in
Yes,
yeah,
yes, yes, exactly. And if somebody said, "Boy, we'd love this in our company," then good problem to have.
yeah, true, true.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
all
All
right.
right, man. So much. Yeah, enjoy your rest of your Sunday, or and enjoy the week.
All right, no problem. We will
Right.
do.
Yeah, take care now.
All right,
Bye, bye,
perfect. Bye bye.
bye,
Bye bye.
bye. Take care.